Hello everyone, welcome back to the Oasis.
The entertainment Oasis.
Oh yes. We're back with another Drinks in a Topic video.
Mm-hmm.
And this one is something that has actually always been on my mind ever since I was a kid. Basically ever since I started playing video games.
Do tell.
And that pretty much is how nobody really respects gaming as a profession.
Now, when you say nobody, who are you?
So when I say
referring
nobody,
to?
I'm thinking like I would say especially the older generation who looks at gaming and sees like these esports competitions, these tournaments, even people who make a living playing video games on YouTube. They look at that and they kind of scoff at it. They don't really respect it as like a way to make a living, because they still see video games as like very childish, something that doesn't really have like I guess like a future or a goal, which that couldn't be further from the truth, I would say. And I say mostly the older generation because so far like it's very rare for someone like very young, whether they be like a young adult like in their 20s, or even like in their teens. You don't really see them, bashing it.
Essentially, you're saying you're aiming this towards the parents who used to say to their kids, "Quit wasting your time playing that nonsense," or like go outside and play.
My parents were the perfect examples. They would always get after me for playing too much, and that's that I had a very I would say a balanced childhood. Like I grew up, bike riding, rollerblading, swimming, hanging out with my friends all the time. But I also had that very like gamer side too, where I can just spend hours in front of the TV just playing video games, and my parents didn't like it at all. But I would always tell them it's like I'm going out still. You know what I mean? But to them it's like they just didn't see it as healthy. That's pretty much where I guess like my aim is at, just people that just don't take it seriously.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I mean, I guess my parents were like that to an extent. Like they wanted me to go outside and play more, which I kind of would with my cousins. But I get what you mean. There's those people who, and I guess because back then, esports wasn't really as big as it is now.
True. Very true.
So the notion that you can make a living playing video games was close to non-existent, which is
very
why
true.
I believe they and many other parents felt like it was a waste of time, like them spending their time playing games instead of studying, because in their mind studying in school, graduating is going to be your future.
Exactly, that led you somewhere.
Back then there was no like gaming this, what you're spending hours on is going to be your future. There was none of that back then.
Yeah. And if there was, it was extremely rare. Like there were tournaments back in the day, but they were much more few and far between, and they didn't have nearly the audience that they do today.
Yeah, they didn't have the audience. They weren't like, you can turn on the TV and you probably wouldn't see any sort of reference to like a video game tournament or anything like that. If there were, I'm pretty sure Evo was still around back. No, yeah, I'm more than sure Evo was around back then. But I'll be honest, I didn't even know Evo was a thing until I hit my 20s, and then I started seeing like, oh wow,
same here.
There's like these real big competitions, but
I didn't hear about it until I was
mostly because it's not something that's publicized unless you're part of the culture. Like really, back then, if you were really deep into it, you would know about it. But if you just if you're like me or some other people who we play games, but not on a competitive level, we would really never know they existed because there was no advertisements for it, nothing.
Yeah. I would say an exception to that was probably, I would have to say South Korea, because during the late 90s, I would say, in the early 2000s, the StarCraft tournament scene, when I say blow up, that's an understatement. Like it was crazy popular in South Korea.
And that's different though, because they treat that thing like the Super Bowl.
Oh yeah, absolutely, and they still do. And now a bunch of other countries are kind of treating these esports competitions as this huge event, which they rightfully should, because these events are pulling in millions of viewers. Now, I do agree that maybe parents do, their mentality was different back in the day, because like you said, it didn't really have too many, I guess, opportunities to make money,
Mm-hmm.
like when we were kids. But now it's very different. The thing is, even nowadays, still the older generation is still treating it kind of like how parents did back in our day when we were still kids.
Yeah.
There's still very much of that stigma to where like, oh, it's video games. It's for children.
Mm-hmm.
They just don't take it seriously. But the fact of the matter is, again, these competitions are pulling in millions of viewers. Some of these competitions pull in more viewers than professional sports championships do, by far, and it's not even close. So really, I mean, just because it's not an athletic sport doesn't mean that you can't make it into a profession, or that it shouldn't be recognized as something that you can take seriously and really compete at a high level and make. I'm not even joking when I say millions of dollars, because a lot of these competitions, the first place prize is in the millions.
Yeah, I'd be interested to see a parent of that mindset all of a sudden have their kid show up with like $500,000 in prize money, just to see if that would really like flip the switch and be like, okay, well, hey, why don't you go to your room and play some video games for a while?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm more than sure there's parents who have had that experience, but it's ultimately, yes, there is a lot of prize money to be had, but
in multiple games.
Yeah, but when you really think about it, though, how many of the competitors out there actually get to take home prize money? Because we see like the same faces, but that doesn't mean that those are the only ones out there. I'm pretty sure there's hundreds, maybe thousands of other people who are vying for opportunities to make money. So I guess while yes, it can be lucrative if you're good, not everyone who steps into that arena is gonna make a name for themselves. They're not gonna be making money. So for them, their parents might feel like, okay, yeah, it's a waste of time. Like you're devoting your days to this, and what are you getting out of it?
Very true, but that's also a testament to how popular this genre is and how competitive it is. Because if you think about it, that same argument can be applied to professional sports, or even the music scene or the acting scene. Is that there's plenty of people, aspiring actors out there, aspiring musicians, aspiring athletes who won't make the cut.
There is a bit of a difference though. Because yes, first for athletes, their main goal is either make it to the NBA, make it to the NFL, make it to the MLB.
Make it as a professional athlete. Yeah.
But they do have, I guess, an additional perk that people playing video games don't.
Mm-hmm.
And for most of them, it's like a free ride to college. You get a scholarship. You might not make it to the NFL, to the NBA, but you have the opportunity to get a college education. Either maybe not like a full ride, but you get scholarships to help pay for a lot of it. So I think that's one of the differences. Yeah, most of them don't make it, but at least they get something out of it.
For professional athletes, yes, but again, acting, the music, the music scene, that can definitely be seen as something like that too. Like maybe a parent is saying like you're wasting your time going to all these acting in all these plays, or maybe all your time trying to make music, where you like I want you to study a more practical field. Go into the sciences, go into law enforcement, go into law or whatever. That's because that's where you can make a living. There's no guarantee that your music or your acting skills, and of course in some cases your athletic ability, is going to get you to where you need to be in life, to where you're a self-sustaining adult. Now, going back to what you said about the scholarship and all that, I'm not sure if you were aware, but now schools are starting up gaming clubs.
Okay, no, I wasn't aware of that.
Yes, so they're starting up gaming clubs to the point where, you know how if schools have either a football team, tennis team, or whatever, they go compete against other schools. Now schools are going to start doing that.
Oh, wow.
It's becoming an emerging thing to where if there's enough, you know, and of course, and I'm pretty sure that the schools are going to have no problem finding enough kids nowadays with gaming interests. Now those clubs are going to start going to compete against other schools in gaming competitions. That's something that I dreamed of as a kid, you know, like having, you know, a strong gaming scene in school to where like maybe there's like a gaming club, so to speak, but something that's actually taken seriously to where like you can compete against other schools. That was like a super far-fetched dream when I was in grade school, you know.
Now it's becoming a reality.
Now it's becoming a reality.
You know, and I know this is, I guess, slightly off topic, but I remember years ago, back when DDR was like a big thing, there were schools who had DDR machines for gym class as a means to exercise, you know, get in your cardio. And I kind of did hate that my high school didn't have anything like that.
Yeah.
Because I was really big into DDR.
Well, I mean, you and I come from a relatively small city. You know, I would think something like that was more of a thing in much bigger cities where there's much bigger populations, and in that population you'll find a lot more kids that were into that to the point where like it caught the school's attention. Yeah. To where, you know what, maybe we should bring one of these machines in, and that would have been something to have.
It's good exercise, and because honestly it doesn't feel like exercise. I mean, yeah, you're out of breath, but
you're sweating like a pig.
It's fun, you know? But yeah, that was just like slightly off topic, but no,
it's a good point.
Now it's crazy though, because I guess going back to the whole esports not being taken seriously, I wonder now that these competitions are not as what's that term I'm looking for? They're not as I don't want to say secretive, because I know that's not the word, but now that they're more publicized and that they're a little more mainstream, I wonder if that would even help shift the mentality that some of these parents have about these kinds of things, because we're gonna get to that point where we're gonna start seeing some of these as essentially the Super Bowl. They're gonna become more of a spectacle than they are now, even though some of these tournaments are already a huge spectacle.
They're already, But
I'm talking like
if you're watching this video and if you haven't seen some of these competition videos, just do a quick YouTube search of League of Legends Championship Finals, Dota, Counter-Strike. What's another popular one? Maybe Mortal Kombat's pretty popular too.
Well, I mean, those always come out in Evo, but if you look at South Korea and their StarCraft, like that's an event. That's like next level.
Yeah.
Like they
I'm sorry, I cut you off.
No, they take it real seriously there, but eventually, it's gonna get to the point where even these tournaments are gonna start getting televised on national TV, and I wonder if that's what it's gonna take for people to.
Some of them already have.
Yeah, and maybe like it becomes something like the Voice or American Idol, where you kind of have that competition of like, oh, these rising stars or would-be champion players, like all competing in a tournament that's televised and maybe on Fox or ABC, and just making it to the top, and then the finale is just this spectacle that all of America tunes into. Yep. I wonder if that's what it's going to take for people to finally give it a little more respect. Or at least the older generation, for them to give it a little more respect, or at least shift their focus.
I definitely think it is eventually. As more time passes, more parents will be more susceptible to maybe allowing their kids to pursue this more. And it's kind of already happening, and I think the reason why is because when gaming started exploding again in the mid 80s and then on into the 90s, the children that got into it during that time are now adults.
Mhm.
You know, they're now in their 30s and their 40s, and then like of course if you're a 90s kid or even early 2000s are approaching their 20s and their 30s. Now they're becoming parents themselves, and if they're having kids that are going to be growing up with gaming like they did, then they're going to be those parents that have a more open mind to their children playing video games and maybe pursuing it because that's what they did as a kid, and they see it as, I wish I had that opportunity when I was a kid, like in the 80s or 90s or early 2000s, and now my kid can actually do it.
Mhm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, but if you're not a parent of that kid, like I said, you're the older generation, you still have that stigma to where video games are kind of a waste of time.
Yeah.
Now, disclaimer. I am not saying that there aren't people out there that have an addiction to video games and really have no balance, like that's literally all they do, then yes, that it can definitely be a problem. Not everybody who plays video games is in the competitive scene to make money.
Yeah.
I would say the majority of them aren't. You know, so if you are someone who does play video games, I mean, I'm not trying to say how to live your life, but you know, if you're spending literally every waking moment in front of the TV playing video games, yeah, it can come back to get you. So just
Keep in mind,
maybe try to find some balance.
Keep in mind, especially touching on that note of like if you spend every waking moment playing video games, there are some people who that's essentially their job. They get paid to spend every waking moment.
That's different though.
Playing video games.
By then, that's their job. That's a little different. Like people who actually decide, I want this to be my career path, or like I really want to make something out of this, then yeah, you got to put in the time. Obviously, like any sport or profession, whether like be an athlete, an actor, a musician, you need to put the time in if you really want to try and make it there. But like I said, some of these people aren't doing that. You know what I mean? They're literally just playing video games, and you know that's it.
Now let me ask, are you like, does esports have like some sort of association that kind of like watches over or looks out for the players' best interests?
What do you mean?
You know how some sports they'll have like a governing body that helps with, you know, I guess trying to make. I guess the best way I can put it is like you know how like they have like a teachers union or a workers union, that kind of stuff. Do they have something like that in esports where it's like a governing body who works towards making in this scenario work towards making esports like a fair and just you know, career for anyone who gets in there.
Yeah, absolutely. So in the sense of like who's kind of like looking over what is professional gaming,
or not only that, but who's like looking over these players to make sure that they're not being taken advantage of, you know, being mistreated. And the only reason I bring that up is because, I mean, yes, I know some people, this is their dream to make it big, but then you see those stories of, you know, people who are part of one of those teams where they pay you to be part of the team, and you know, they essentially, like, that becomes your whole life. You have no outside life. You wake up, you play games, you burn yourself out, and it's just like you're essentially a slave. I won't say that. I guess that's taking a little too overboard. I wouldn't say that they're a slave, but they're just in a very unfortunate situation where eventually that passion is just crushed and they have no interest in it because they're just
the pressure is too much.
All the pressure that they're being put under. You know, it's just spending every minute just playing video games, not because you want to. It might have started that way. It might have started that way
because you loved it so much, but now it's your job,
and like you're forcing you. It's like, no, you like play and I don't know. It's just tragic sometimes, the stories you hear.
I think what you're trying to get at is who's looking out for these players as far as like maybe they're getting burnt out,
mistreated or just not treated like what do you call it? Not
they're not being treated a dignified way. Just basically saying like, I don't care if you're suffering. You just need to keep playing.
yeah.
So that to me goes back to, it goes on to a lot of different like things. One of them being sponsorship.
Mm-hmm.
So really, in order for you to, I guess, if you want any shot at making this kind of a career, first off, you need to get exposure.
Mm-hmm.
You need to go to plenty of tournaments. You know what I mean?
Get your name out there.
You need to get your name out there. You maybe want to have like a couple of championships under your belt, whether it be small local tournaments or bigger ones.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe have a pretty strong online presence. You know, like you post some of your gaming stuff online or whatever, and you're gaining exposure. So once you do, these sponsors will come and maybe sponsor you, insert you into a team, or let's say if you found your own team with some friends, maybe they'll decide to sponsor your team
at tournaments.
At tournaments, or maybe they'll say, "Oh, we only want 2 or 3 of you. We've noticed that most of the talent from your group is these 3." So
yeah,
it just kind of depends. Now, once you get to that level, I think depending on who you're, because then you get a manager, you get coaches. Like it's basically like almost as if like you're in a real sport. Like, you know how in football you have all these coaches and you've got like these counselors and all these things.
Yeah.
Maybe not to that extent, but that also exists in these like sponsored teams. You know, coaches will look after them. And I would imagine if they're a good coach, if they're a good sponsoring team, they probably tell them like, hey, I know it's important for you to play and practice, but you also need to probably take a step back from the computer or the console every once in a while.
Yeah, looking out for their mental health.
Yeah, and just take your mind off it for a while, because I mean, I would think that would make them a better player in the long run.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because then, like what you said, burnout can happen, and the pressure can get to them to the point where like
they just lose it.
They just lose it. Now, are there sponsorship teams that maybe don't look out for their players as well? I can imagine there are probably some that are worse than others or better than others, you know. But as far as like specifically which teams, I have no idea, you know. So,
you know, I kind of liken it to like, I'm pretty sure you've seen some of those documentaries about like being a pop star in like Korea.
Absolutely.
And how grueling it is, you know. You can't have a social life. It's like wake up, eat, rehearse, go to sleep, and then when it comes to pay, it's peanuts, you know. Virtually nothing, and they have complete control of your life. You essentially have no freedom, and I just hope it doesn't get to that point. And I'm not sure how they do things in other countries, but it's just, I don't know, it's kind of troubling to think about like whether or not there's people in those types of positions, and I don't know. I just feel like if it does become an actual, I guess, sport, not saying that it's not a sport right now, but officially recognized, televised as a sport.
You're finding it in schools, like across the state, you
yeah,
know, or maybe even across the country.
I wonder if at that point maybe they start like kind of shift how they treat it or something. I don't know.
Yeah. Crazy. And of course, like this video and this perspective is from where we're from, you know, from the States. And yeah, places like South Korea, maybe it's already completely different mindset. I don't doubt that, you know, in South Korea, all these tournaments are getting like mainstream national attention.
I'm pretty sure it's
there.
just like the good, like not the good games, but like the more popular ones that are treated like a spectacle.
Like for example, like if you turn on your local news and if football season is going on or a basketball season is going on, they have a sports segment to where they say, oh, and so team won against this and this or whatever, especially if it's a team that's like representing your state, wherever you're from. Now, I can imagine in South Korea, gaming gets their, I would think it does. Maybe I could be wrong. I'm not trying to say like I know how South Korea operates with their media, but like I can imagine, like I would think that gaming gets that kind of attention in South Korea. I'm guessing.
It's like, in sports news, blah 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 blah, made it
yeah.
to
Or maybe
the
they have a gaming
finals of
segment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's crazy.
Exactly. I mean, why wouldn't it? Like I said, these teams are making, the cash prize is millions of dollars, and they've got each tournament that's broadcast or put on YouTube gets millions of views. And then like the live crowd that shows up to these events, I'm not sure about now because of the pandemic, but before was attracting thousands of people.
Yeah. It's an interesting topic, and I think this is all the time we have for you guys today.
Yeah.
I know this video is already kind of running pretty long, but I don't know. What do you guys think?
Yeah, let us know what you think about gaming in general. Whether it's going to stay on the same track or it's only going to get bigger. I think it's going to get bigger over time. But
are we gonna have like Monday night esports, kind of like we have like Monday night
right.
football, yeah.
Stuff like that. Let us know your thoughts in the comments.
Until then, thank you guys for coming to the Oasis, and we hope you. I messed it up. We hope you come back. I recovered. To the Oasis.
The entertainment Oasis.
I want the football theme for the esports. Bada bum, bada bum.
Yeah.
Bada bum, bada bum.
But for gaming.
Bum, bada bum, bada bum, bada bum, bum, bum. Is that how it goes, right? Yeah.